Kyrie rose. Speaking for the council, I want to thank all of you who have been with us during long hours of debate and discussion. We know that this matter is as important to you as it is to us. I speak to our guests from regions beyond our earth. There has been much spoken here this day of our beginnings. We appreciate you and respect your information and care of us. We have contemplated the matter of our future with great attention, and our decision has not come easily. Gyra paused, cleared his throat, and lifted a paper from the table. He stopped, looked. Myra thought he was weighted with the magnitude of this matter. Before he continued, she felt a sudden jolt in her abdomen, and she knew the decision. He took a deep breath and began reading. We have reached a decision. The High Council of Tyre rules that those who have shared their ways with us are now to return to their homes. We extend our gratitude for the balancing of our energies and for the exemplary way you have lived among us. But the course we are on is the one we will pursue. We find no reason to change its direction at this time. A ripple ran through those on outreach, a shudder, and then acceptance. Myra saw the arrogance in the faces of those council members who very powerfully manipulated attitudes and perceptions. Half-truths, flattery, and outright deceit had swayed the vote. Then Myra looked at her friend Dana. Wisdom etched the high priestess's face while sadness filled her eyes. Myra heard shouting and screaming from outside the council hall. Through the expansive window, she could see that word of the decision had reached the streets. Feet were running, fists thrashing the air. The tall man was again frantically moving through the crowds, knocking down any in his way. The smaller groups became a mob, while the policing authorities used force to maintain control. Myra looked back to the hall and caught a glance between Council Member Lucas and Dana. Lucas looked smug, lips curled into a smile of triumph. These two leaders represented the extremes of the Earth's energy. One, manipulated by the outside parasitics, had generated and took advantage of the chaos, division, and fear to entrap the masses. And the other leader, speaking of benefit for all, wisdom, and the great vision which would have led to the removal of the outsiders and expansion for the divine families. Myra turned and looked out of the windows at the streets, the riots, the shouts, the screams. And so who had won and what of great value had been lost? Chapter 3. Stones and sticks crashed into the shields of helmets of the double lines of the Riker policing forces. The streets boiled with clashes between Tyrians, angry that the guests were being forced to leave, and crowds of those who wanted them gone. The once welcoming city was deteriorating into an uncontrolled mob. The portion of the Riker who gathered at a rear door from the great hall, and they were charged to assure the safe exit of the members of the outreach mission. Dana had sent word through the council hall and the gardens for the consortium members to quietly make their way to the conference room at the northwest corner of the magnificent hall. Myra silently moved toward the designated room, exchanging quick goodbyes with Tyrian friends. As she approached, she saw Tuma watching from the conference door, and together they went into the room. In a short time, all consortium members were there, insulated from the disruptions of the street, and yet facing the end of their time of teaching and their mood was somber. Well, my friends, Dana began, I am so proud to be a part of this incredible outreach. Your commitment to radiate the true nature of our family despite all cynicism took great courage. You have left a legacy of compassion, grace, and peace. Generations to come will remember your visit. We have 2 hours to gather our things. Our ships are standing by, and we will have Tyrian's Riker escorts for our safety. There will be time for discussion later, but now we are in a hurry. Leave quickly. I will see you all on board. Myra and Tuma moved with a small group out the back of the garden into the shadows of the trees as they passed the edge of the crowds. They had almost cleared the second street when they heard shouts and running feet. I returned. Through the spaces between the guards, she saw the tall, blonde man running toward them, hurling stones and screaming his anger. For just a moment, she looked into his eyes. For just a moment, she looked into his eyes filled with parasitic emptiness and hate. Then the Riker guards blocked his way. As soon as the consortium members had boarded the ships and moved away from the Earth, the intercom signaled for quiet. Those on board stopped their activities to listen. The intercom crackled, and the voice of Jera, the high priest of their mission, sounded. My dear friends, he began, I bring greetings from the Galactic Council, the great divine collectives, and your brothers and sisters of light. The considerable portions of your divine families of good in worlds beyond Earth are aware of your efforts and the vote by the Council. We are all affected by the Council's decision. The meeting of the multidimensional galactic families has been called to discuss today's vote by the Earth's Council. Our commitments to remove the outsiders and their destructive, sucking energies have not lessened. To give up would allow their presence to destroy all of us. Myra couldn't get the blonde man's eyes out of her mind. They were staring, empty one moment and red-rimmed, and filled with rage the next. She had seen his docile mood, his confused stare as he leaned on the fence before the announcement of the vote. And coming alive, a frenzied rage and hostility filled him. She shuddered and breathed herself back to the present and Jera's words, our commitments, our commitments. Thinking again of the young blonde man, she whispered emphatically, my commitment is sure. The outsider presence and influence must end. The flight home had been uneventful, a time to rest, to contemplate the Earth experience. Now she and Tuma came to the council meeting, prepared to hear their proposal for the next step. Soft lights and music filled the open chamber hall, spilling out beyond the expansive space. Jera and Dana had been asked to preside over the Galactic Council meeting and sat at the main table. Tuma, Myra, and the other members of the consortium mission were seated to the left and right of the couple, all facing the circle of attendees. As you know, Jera began, the Ancient Ones, those who volunteered for the original Earth mission, have a unique responsibility to our family. There could not have been more creativity and intelligence than the group that designed this complex task. When the outsiders made changes in the circuitry and systems of the physical bodysuit, we knew that the volunteers would be operating within crippled systems. With this corrupted energy, we knew there would be problems. The planning committee postulated that the volunteers would have a difficult time to stay awake, that they would be unable to maintain stability long enough to prevent the outsiders' agenda from being imposed as they had. Their unconscious mind fog would keep them vulnerable to the outsider's deception and control. This we knew. And immediately the planners began brainstorming solutions. The purpose with each possibility was to bring clarity of mission and divine home back to the earth families. As they broke free of blindness and parasitic constructs, the divine possibilities could begin to inspire, allowing natural expressions of good, sovereignty, unity, abundance, help. The consortium outreach was one of those possibilities to bring the original Earth mission back online. You see the volunteers who have just returned here on the dais with me. It is clear that more is needed. Now we present the next proposal. It is a plan for additional Divine Family member volunteers, this time to burst into the evolutionary system. Each will be born into a physical bodysuit within an Earth family. We hope that the abilities and perceptions that volunteers have developed in our off-Earth worlds will survive the density of Earth. The plan is that their wisdom and insight will be available to them to inspire their Earth family unit. Whispered exchanges and ripples of excitement ran through the group. Jera continued. This mission force with recent connection to clarity would not have experienced crushing damage. Birthing as one of an Earth family, they could awaken the power of light and awareness within those units, awakening personal choice, the expansive mission, and support abilities will be available more intimately. Jera looked around at the attentive group. Then he spoke. We are all aware of the heavy energies that blind and dull humanity. It is critical to assure connections to home energy for those on this phase of mission. We have planned a way to counter this density for the volunteers. There will be many friends, teachers, and masters who will remain in spiritual regions to guide, direct, and give access to the overall plans. A central point for each volunteer will contain channels of secured communication systems. The intention is that the systems will bypass the contaminated cloudiness of Earth. Channels anchored within the soul body will provide the volunteer access to clarity while on planet Earth. Jera paused and walked a few steps in quiet thought. The ships will be leaving this planet in a fortnight. Those of you who decide to volunteer will want to return home for that short time before beginning this assignment. Remember, Earth functions by individual choice. While in a physical bodysuit, volunteers must declare and ask for our help. Many in spiritual bodies will be available to answer questions and fulfill requests, but the eternal universal law functioning on Earth puts the right of creating and changing into the hands of individuals in physical bodies. We will live in obedience to that law. When the volunteers see a need, they can call for unlimited spiritual help, but they must be the one who requests. Jera stopped speaking and turned toward Dana. He smiled at her, and she responded with a nod, stood beside him. Myra could sense their love. They were like young lovers with one another, even after eons. Myra knew such love. Tuma still caused her heart to sing. Then Jera went on. You notice that we are using the word volunteer. This mission is a free will undertaking. No one is required to participate. As a high priest, it is my responsibility to hold the vision for this mission and to assure our return home. This mission's purpose is to restore the original plan initiated by the Ancient Ones. Achieving that intention will reset the evolutionary plan for Earth families to the light of good and home. I will hold this mission purpose clearly in mind. We strongly urge each of you to go within and contemplate and review. If any have questions, there will be discussions later this evening. Myra saw Jera reach for Dana's hand and look into her azure eyes. Dana and I have chosen to be part of this group. The hall erupted in applause. Myra looked at Tuma, who was focusing intently on Jera's words. She recognized his excitement and his enthusiasm as it touched her. She recognized his excitement and his enthusiasm as it touched her. She laid her hand on his. He gently lifted their joint hands, brushed hers softly against his lips. A smile passed between them and her heart swelled. Tuma and Myra chose without the need to speak. They would join the volunteers on this unusual opportunity of love. What is to come?